Hello everyone and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as J-Monster. Today I'm bringing you a 3 versus 3 on the Desolation of Anfalglith map. This is on our test build and it will be another game featuring Valinor. And so, let's take a look at some of the army comps here and then we can jump right into it. The first army is being commanded by Melkon. He is of course playing as the House of Feanor. 2 units of the Hunters of Caligorm Heavy Lancers. 1 unit of the Oroquini Magaloro Bodyguard with their maces and their just general sexiness. They are very difficult to deal with for many factions out there. We've also got a couple units here of the Mounted Company. We've seen them perform consistently well across basically all matchups. We've got a couple of Riders of the Past and some Otor Maitimo, the Oathsworn of Maedhros, who I'm happy to say will be getting a new model, probably in this patch, maybe in the next one. But it is really cool, really unique looking, and I can't wait to show it off to you guys. But in any case, moving on. More Mounted Company, more Riders. Is that 3? 3 units? Yeah, okay, he's got 2. 2 of the Lancers. And his infantry force is, of course, bare bones, consisting of 4 units of fully upgraded Forbin of Amoras and 2 units of Archers of Amrod, with their armor upgrades as well. So, very tanky, but quite low in number, as many armies tend to be. Forming the center and core of this army, we have the Blessed Realm of Valinor, of course. 2 units, actually I believe 3 units of Shoal Runners. These are light horse archers, not the greatest morale response. They are quite easy to scatter, but they are cheap and efficient at range. They also hit pretty hard for a unit of their tier. Over here, we have the Grieving Sons, the legendary company, and the sort of lighter counterpart to the Sentinels of Tyrion heavy swordsmen. The Grieving Sons, lore-wise, are intended to be, well, this isn't really lore, it's more of like custom fluff, but in any case, they are intended to be Teleran survivors, or the kin of Teleran survivors of the sack of Alqualonde, and so they are hungry for blood here, although, oddly enough, fighting alongside the grouchy lobster boys of the House of Feanor. Huntress Fox, who's playing this army, is also bringing a couple units of Plaza Guardians. These are the 2-handed spears, a really nice thing to have when Angband or Falas is on the field. We've got a catapult here, and that's going to be crewed by some Hearthguard of Tyrion. Kinsmen of Ingwe, of course, and that is where Eonwe, the bodyguard, is going to be chilling today. Also got a front line here composed of 1, 2, 3 units of Mariners of Alqualonde, some Swan Guard of Alqualonde in loose formation, and some Sentries of Alqualonde out front. I believe there are 2 to 3 units of. And we've also got, I think, 5 to 6 units of the Shoal Hunters of Alqualonde, which is a really nice pick against his opponent. The Philothrim, as those sling bullets can do a crap ton of damage to them. Rounding off his cavalry force, we have the Knights of Tyrion. I think it's just the 1 unit. And then the rest of his cavalry is composed of Shoal Runners. So no Wild Riders today. I got some more Swan Guard of Alqualonde over here as well. Looks like we're rolling with about 2 units of them today. And then the third and final member of the blue team is, of course, the House of Finarfin. We've got some swordsmen of Talar Dyrren here, out on the front, all in loose formation, and then behind them, a solid phalanx of the heaviest, most elite troops that Nargothrond can bring. Wardens of Nargothrond and Bridge Wards of Nargothrond are going to ensure that nobody gets by them. They're going to body block anything that comes their way. They've got a lot of survivability, a lot of melee defense, and a crap ton of armor. This is truly a phalanx to be feared. And in the back here we've got the legendary company for the House of Finarfin, the company of Prince Gwyndor Heavy Infantry. They've got some really good stats, really good armor, but a little bit less melee defense than your average swordsman of Talar Dyrren unit, which they are the more heavily armored counterpart of. In the back, Archers of Talar Dyrren, probably about 2 units of, some Defenders of Talar Dyrren. I believe there's 2 units on the field of these Hunter Javelins, which makes them particularly good against armor and low entity units, and monsters in particular. Arquini Mormagilwa on the field today as well, and the Sartor Findarato forming the heart of this army, and that is going to be where the General is hanging out today. You can see Turin there with his little helmet. He'll definitely be getting a model upgrade fairly soon, and strangely enough, they brought themselves a Ballista, which is also going to net them a unit of Wardens of Nargothrond. I think that about does it for them, with perhaps the exception of a couple units of Marksmen of Nargothrond here, rather, the Split-Shot Archers. And so, let's move across the field and see what Team Red is bringing to the battle today. Across the field from Finarfin, we have the Guarded Realm of Doriath, played by Captain Gervais. He's got some Rangers of the Girdle here. I believe he has 2 half companies of them. Wardens of the Girdle here as well. We've got some Kuthalim. In this particular patch, the Wardens of the Girdle have a Shield Breaker trait, which allows them to ignore half of shield value from the front, which is pretty damn cool. It does give them a little bit more of a niche, and I think you're going to be seeing more and more of the Girdle units, or the Wardens of the Girdle in particular, and mid-tier units more generally across all factions in the coming patch, as they will be slightly tweaking downwards by about 8 to 10% the cost of all of those units. Over here we have the Kuthalim, who have a new Shield Breaker and Armor Piercing traits, so they actually do an insane amount of damage to heavily armored units. They ignore up to 75% of armor and shield, so that's pretty damn scary. Next, we've got Warriors of Region. I think we've got about 2 to 3 companies of. They're going to form the heart of this army. We have some Spear Host of the Girdle detachments. These detachments operate more like Harassment Javelins, so they actually do have armor piercing. But there are, of course, less of them. Axemen of the Girdle, your standard throwing axe unit, not something that you want to underestimate, particularly nice against factions like Valinor. The Vanyar are really good targets for throwing axemen. Over here, got some Sword Host, probably upgraded. Got some Doneth and Mablung as well in behind them. Those 2-handed maces, they are quite fearsome indeed. Tirin Laisdanen on the front lines, more Sword Host and Spear Host, which is exactly where they want to be. They are heavier and have better shield value than the Axemen, and they also can upgrade their armor currently, although some of the way that Doriath infantry works will be shifted around a little bit, and that includes armor upgrades, but these guys will remain with that, and they will have about 10 or so armor and some really good shield value as well. More Axemen of the Girdle in behind them, got some more Spear Host out in the wing, and then some Mounted Company of the Region in the back. Altogether, pretty scary Doriath army. Moving on now, we have the Falathrim, who actually have some cool new looks for some of their units. Marines of Eglarest here, some hard target javelins. There's a lot of great targets that they can use them against when it comes to Valinor. Marksmen of Balar, probably with an armor upgrade, I would expect. And then in behind here, we've got a couple units of these Scouts of Eglarest, so a good amount of medium melee cavalry. Mariners of Earendil, which it looks like is where Círdan is going to be spending his time today. This is the legendary company. They are a lighter anti-elephant version of the Warriors of Eglarest. They do have a little bit less armor, and they can't upgrade their armor like the Warriors can. But they also have a very sizable inspiration ability. In about 100 or so meters, they'll be able to give like 3 morale or something insane like that. So really nice to have. Nobles of Balar here, 2 units of. And then we have the Foresters of Nimbrethil, which are the previous Foresters of Berthambar. And they now have a little bit of an aesthetic upgrade here that sort of suggests that they are the sneaky unit that they indeed are in practice on the battlefield. Marines of Berthambar will be retaining their classic look. However, all the other units of Berthambar and so forth, all the other light, medium, or mid-tier units will be getting facelifts. So the Marines will be staying as they are. They are Harassment Javelins right now, and that is how it will remain. Really good at just kind of taking the fight to the enemy from range, especially, and weakening them. In particular, they're very good against other skirmishers. Warriors of Eglarest here, 1 unit of. Got some Spear Host of Berthambar, who are a little bit lighter, and their armor value now reflects that. However, they have a cool new model. That's always really nice to have. They've got some Precursor Javelins in addition too, so they can be very disruptive, but also quite efficient against other troops. Out in front, we have the Rangers of Nimbrethil, all of whom have a new model, and it's worth mentioning this was done by Stewart of Dale, one of our developers, who's actually in this particular battle, so fantastic job done by him. They are unfortunately having a lot of trouble against those Valinor archers, so we'll move through this very quickly. And then over here we have some more Marines of Eglarest. And then finally, we have Angband, the Realm of Angband being played by Stewart of Dale. He's got Spear Guard, Thralls, Wolf Riders, who are kind of just okay, but it is worth noting that in desert areas like this, Angband actually gets a minor attack bonus, so they will get an extra +2 against all enemies, so they are particularly deadly here. Thralls of Angband, then of course the front line consisting of both Wretches and Halberds. Very nice and efficient here. Bulldogs in the back, probably with an armor upgrade, making them extra scary. More Thralls out front, yet more Thralls, and some more Wolf Riders. We got some Iron-Shroud Ravagers out on each wing. We have Troll Guard. We have the fearsome Uruloki here to spit fire and take names. More thralls out front and another unit of spear guard. That should round off the army here. I think he's actually got 2 units of the troll guard, believe it or not. It's a big amount of monstrous infantry on his side, and then some more hunters over here to kind of tie things down. So a really nice army from Cyrodiil. That is basically all she wrote for this. So let's go ahead and jump into the battle. Hope you guys enjoy. And this is where it gets chaotic and beautiful. We're going to go ahead and slow it down because a lot happens all at once. Doriath is going to take to the offensive basically right from the get-go. Shield bearers and warriors and Hidden Danen charging forward against the House of Finarfin. But they're going to open up some of those marksmen. And this is going to turn into a little bit of a killing field. More of the infantry here from the House of Finarfin moving forward to try and disrupt this advance and give those skirmishers just a little bit of extra time to play their hand. You can see a lot of those Finarfin units kind of on their way to the front. 2 Wardens of Nargothrond and some Swordsmen of Tal Dyrnan. They're going to want to set themselves up to toss their javies, which can be particularly scary against some of these lighter units, such as the Wardens of the Girdle in particular. Now Doriath getting ready to charge in here. Wardens of Nargothrond probably would win this fight. Plus they're going to be able to overlap these shield bearers a little bit. But there is of course a numbers differential here. But the Wardens of Nargothrond definitely have the defensive edge, which is everything that you look for in a spear. Warriors of Region, they're going to charge in. And that is going to tip the balance in favor of Doriath. Swordsmen of Tal Dyrnan trying to take an aggressive approach here, but Doriath is going to be on top of them before they are able to turn around, form up, and toss those javies. There's that withering poison fire as well, combined with the damage that the Warriors of Region can do in close quarters, might be enough to break these Swordsmen of Tal Dyrnan very, very quickly. Over here, the company of Prince Gwyndor, however, have something to say about it, and even if these units do break, the company of Prince Gwyndor are fearless. They will not break under any circumstances, and so this is going to turn into a little bit of a morass. Swordsmen of Tal Dyrnan really taking it on the chin here against the Warriors of Region, and Finarfin is just not having a great time altogether on this front line. You can see that they've sort of either pulled back or been pushed back in several different places. Arquini Mor Megilwa being committed to the front. Defenders of Tal Dyrnan trying to do the same thing that the swordsmen were doing on the other side. And they're going to have a little bit more time here to set up, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Doriath coming in now with the Axemen of the Girdle, 2 units of. Some shield bearers here who've managed to rout off the Wardens of Nargothrond. Now those poison arrows are coming in and more projectiles. This is really not a good situation for House Finarfin to be in. This is the sort of circumstances where things can rout very, very quickly. It's going to hurt a lot. And they're trying to set up, trying to reload. And some swordsmen here coming in behind them as well. But Doriath shield bearers are going to be on top of them. This is where the Winged Lancers arrive. And so Hunters of Caligorm here, the House of Feanor are coming to the succor of their brothers' beleaguered host, and the Doriathrim are going to find themselves in a bad position here. Their momentum is sort of stalling out, and now the Hunters of Caligorm are going to be in here. They are fear-causing, and a charge, even through their own troops, is going to be enough to rout the warriors off, basically with their presence. Axemen of the Girdle shooting their shot against the Marksmen of Nargothrond. But now that this front here is basically collapsed and opened up a massive hole in the Doriath line, there's not really any reserves here that can be easily thrown in. There's some sword hosts, but they're quite far back. And those Hunters of Caligorm are going to charge in. Countercharged by those Doriath light axemen. But the pressure is going to be just too much. And these axemen will actually crack under it. And there they go, having taken massive casualties there, combined with the fear from the Hunters of Caligorm. Unfortunately, the mounted company of Region were just a little bit too slow to get in there. Scouts of Eglaris now coming in as well, putting some pressure on the swordsmen of Tal Dyrnan, but I feel that a lot of the damage here has kind of been done. So if we pop over to the Falas side of things, they're doing their best, but their 2 units of Rangers of Nimbrethil are kind of outgunned here. I mean, they're trading all right-ish. Really not that well, actually, with the Sentries of Alcolonde. They do have the high ground here, which is going to help them out with their range. And over here, yeah, this unit has done just fine. The Shoal Hunters have now been brought forth. They're going to be enough to rout off some of these scouts of Eglarest, and they're going to route right through the Swan Guard. Probably not the best idea to commit them in here. There was a lot more ranged options, I think, that could have been used to shut down the Shoal Hunters, so maybe using that melee cavalry was just a little bit greedy. You don't want to rush into the jaws of a Valinor skirmish line like this. And there was some Swan Guard of Alcalonde in there, which probably didn't help all that much. Marines of Brathambar, however, being brought forward, they're pretty good against the Shoal Hunters. But I think they're maybe a little bit too close here, and they're going to have to take some time to sort of form up and load up their javies, and they're actually going to get peppered down by like 2 or 3 units in the meanwhile. And of course, there are the Swan Guard who are now floating around, able to do whatever they want. And so these Marines are going to have a very bad time, as we can see. Yeah, light infantry do indeed fear these slingers. Very painful for them indeed. But there is a second company here. They are going to be able to return fire a little bit. So these guys, I want to see what they managed to accomplish. Spearhost of Brathambar had a very bad day here indeed. A lot of archers and things like that light infantry generally don't appreciate. But that really does show how good these units can be against a unit like Shoal Hunters. Scything through, I think, like a quarter of the unit. Yeah, just utterly brutalizing them. And yeah, that's pretty nice there. If they turn their attentions over to, say, this unit of Shoal Hunters here, I think these guys were doing that. They managed to bring them down fairly well. And there's some marksman support over here as well, which is going to be, I think, invaluable in cutting through these Shoal Hunters. That's a really big threat to the Philothrum right here that hopefully they're able to address a little bit more efficiently. And some of those Swan Guard actually getting hit with their own sling bullets there, and they're probably going to end up routing off. Indeed they do. And then over here, Angband kind of playing chicken a little bit with the Feanor army. It does oblige Feanor to at least keep some of their forces over here instead of just running amok with their cavalry as they would otherwise be able to do. Archers of Amrod, probably best if they shoot at the Ironshot Ravagers or something like that, as there's not really many good targets for archers against an Angband force like this. Usually you want to go after the crossbows, or, like I said, the Ravagers and things like that, but there's not really enough of them, and there's no crossbows on the field today, so yeah, a bit of a questionable inclusion there. We'll see how that works out for Feanor eventually, but over here, things are pretty ugly for poor Doria. Marksmen, or rather the warriors here, being overrun by a combination of hunters of Kelegorm and a bunch of Finarfin infantry. That being said, they didn't do too poorly against Finarfin. Their front line got chewed up very, very badly. It does sort of attest to how much of an infantry blender a Doriath army can be. But when there's this much support, it's really not as easy for them to get the momentum that they need and to sustain it. So with the addition of those 2 Lancer units, kind of blunting their momentum and basically killing off like 3 units in the span, a very short span of time, in fact. This is really tough for Doriath, but nonetheless, they still have managed to chew through a lot of the mid-tier units from Finarfin and actually kill off some of their elites as well. I did see some of the Wardens of Nargothrond running for the hills there. Axemen of the Girdle charging in support of the Wardens. And these Archers of Tal Durin are not going to have a good time here. Off the charge, Axe units are particularly scary. You're going to see those numbers drop very, very quickly in close quarters with those Axemen. Donathan Mablung and his warriors here just sort of floating around. I think they're going to charge into the rear of those archers and try and finish that off. Meanwhile, yeah, things are just not looking great for Doriath. You can see the Philothrum now. The front shifting towards them. Rangers of Nimbrethil going toe-to-toe with some of the sentries. Outnumbered as they are, still managing to deal a little bit of casualties in return. Marines of Brathambar over here still have their ammo. Ooh, that's going to be ugly. Oh, the Shoalrunners are going to just get butchered by those javelins. Oh yeah, look at that. They just drop. They just drop like you wouldn't believe. Now some support here are the Marksmen of Nargothrond laying down the pain into the Marines. Some support nearby in the form of the Foresters of Nimbrethil. And those Shoalrunners are going to wish they had never been born. These 2-handed axes, yeah, look at them. They're just going to die off. In the dozens there, very, very quickly. Might even cause a rout. But these guys are extremely vulnerable to missiles. And there's a lot of missile power still on their side. Nobles of Balar in the back, Marines of Rathombar still here. Forces of Nimbarethil in the back. Looks like they've managed to kill off a large number of the Roqueni Magloro, which is great, alongside some of the marksmen of Balar. Survivors from the battle against Doriath, including some very healthy units of pikemen, and some Riders of the Pass who look like they still have some ammo. Ooh, gonna get a nice cheeky charge here into the rear of these marksmen of Balar, and it's gonna hurt. One of the things to note about Silmarillion is that armor values are generally a lot lower than you may be used to in other mods like DAC or Reforged. Our big stat is melee defense, and that is the big defense you're going to have against charge. Even horse archers charging into the back of units is actually going to be quite painful, as you saw there. But half that unit of heavily armored marksmen died, and that's just to reward you for making those sort of skilled plays. Ooh, Knights of Tedion charging into the Marines here. They're going to have a difficult time getting out of there if those nobles of Balar manage to get in, unless they pull directly through that unit, which they will be able to do, lucky for them. And they're going to charge headlong into this other company of marksmen of Balar, kind of keeping these Falas units out of the fight. Meanwhile, over here, Marinas Vearendil going toe-to-toe with a lot of Valinor infantry here, including the Plaza Guardians, and just through sheer numbers are actually managing to overwhelm those Vanyar. Up here, the marksmen of Nargothrond out of ammunition, and over on this end, Angband going on the offensive, kind of playing cat and mouse here with the Feanor army. Feanor pulling back, probably quite wisely, maybe looking for like a nice hill engagement or something to give them a little bit of an edge, because their infantry force is wildly outclassed by what Angband has here. So I probably wouldn't take that fight immediately as well. I try to keep Angband, from reinforcing the center, for example. Meanwhile, over here, Marines of Eglares going to have a very bad day, getting rear charged by the Knights of Tedion. Nice job there on the part of the Valinor player, managing to isolate these spearmen, and they are not going to be long for this world. Now, with all of this stuff, all the weight of the world essentially crashing down upon them, they are going to crumble. Over here, though, the Philothrim are not doing that bad, actually. They're managing to hold the line, and over here they are winning. And in the back, well, they're sort of slowly being overwhelmed, but it's not an easy thing with like horse archers squaring off against infantry. Elite archers don't have any penalties against cavalry, so they will hold their own far, far better. It's not going to be an easy thing, especially not with the nobles of Balar moving in to support. Over here, this is a bit of a problem. There's not really much left on the Philothrim side that can potentially address this. And in behind their lines is basically a red ruin. There's almost no reserves left here. The Philothrim are kind of on their last legs in a few ways, but they are managing to win in a few different places. But yeah, let's check on Doriath. Doriath's still kicking. Sartor Fin Narado over here. Swordsman of Taldirnan, full retreat, and there's a small number of Doriath units that managed to pull their way out of this. But it was just destructive for both sides here. With the exception of the House of Finarfin, who managed to pull out some of their units and send them to the center to help out their team. Donathan Mablung blundering their way through a few mid-tiers here, but it's just a graveyard over here. That's what I like to see. Meanwhile, let's see how things are going with Angband. Looks like they've managed to finally get a hold of the House of Feanor. What happened here is that Angband was in the process of forming up, and then the House of Feanor charged them in order to give themselves a little bit of a positional advantage, but Angband has nonetheless managed to get themselves into a passable formation, and they are currently in the process of boxing the ears of the House of Feanor, and this is where it gets ugly. They're sort of holding the line and doing not too bad. They are Noldor, they're no pushovers, but in come the monsters, in come the Uruloki and the Trollguard. House of Feanor are going to try and counter and support all these units with their cavalry, but there's Ravagers in here, there's Spear Guard. It's just not going to be enough. And these cavalry won't be able to stand and fight lest they are completely killed off. But it's really a beggar's choice, isn't it? They leave and get away from the spears, and the spears end up flanking the line. Uruloki, very nicely done. Ooh, there goes the Falas General. We'll investigate the consequences of that in just a minute. But this is actually really nicely done. So right down the line here, absolutely butchering their way through. Even with the Valinor reinforcements, it's just not going to be enough. Over here you can see Plaza Guardians moving in to kind of block. And a combination of Ravagers and Spear Guard against all of this, including the Kinsmen of Ingwe. It's not going to be enough. This is the one place where Angband is kind of struggling, but it's really not their fault. There's a ton of Valinor reinforcements that managed to get in here, and Malkon did his job. I mean, he kept Angband out of the fight until such a time as his allies were able to come and help him, so really nicely played on his end. Over in the center, the Falas making their final stand. These nobles here getting the beat down. I think what remains of the Mariners being overwhelmed. That's basically it for the Falathrim. But Doriath is still here. Still present. There's still some Donathan Mablung. Not enough, though. Spear Host of the Girdle in behind these guys. Now that they're exhausted with that morale penalty, it might be enough. Oh no, that's terrible news. There goes the Angband General. Just as the person who slew the commander gets run over by an Udurloki. But they're just having Feanor for dinner. Which makes sense. The Feanor army wasn't super equipped to take on Angband in a frontal engagement, and Feanor does kind of struggle against polearms and armor piercing. It's one of their big weaknesses. So Angband is going to be able to just push through here. Udurloki have feasted well this day. And now, oh no, this is where it gets ugly. Thrall's being overrun here by the Shoal Runners. But Stewie is kind of sacking that unit to give his other unit time to fire, but I think they're only just going to get that one shot off, probably. One final volley there will probably claim the lives of more of these Shoal Hunters. And these Thralls, actually, with their numbers and the numbers of the Shoal Hunters relative to them, they probably won't do too poorly. Wretches charging in here against this Valinor flanking force, backed up with cavalry. They're going to break almost immediately. Oh, this is going to be ugly for the Udurloki. They don't want to get anywhere near the Vanyar, who are just going to completely eradicate them. If they want to take on the this one's going to die, almost certainly. If they want to take on Vanyar, they want to be able to shoot them with their fiery projectile from range. That's where they do best. Oop. Might kill off some of the Vanyar, but those two-handed spears are really going to be a problem for these Udurloki. Yep, down they go. Down they go. But against the archers, they're going to have a great time. Against the catapult, they'll probably do just fine as well. And up here, Troll Guard and what remains of the Angband infantry force trying to get in close with Valinor. We have some routing here. A lot of these units are tired. They've lost their general. And there's just not enough of the orcs left, I think, to really pull this off. That being said, how are these guys doing? Thralls didn't do too badly, actually. It took some additional reinforcements here to make sure that they were gone for good. I think I still hear the Udurloki. There's still a few of them left. I think about 2 units, maybe? Yep, indeed. And they're going to have a field day against these light Teleri troops. Let's see what happens. I really want to see that Udurloki attack somebody. Boom. Oh yeah, cutting through them like a hot knife through butter. The Teleri that were there seemed like they just evaporated in the face of that dragon. Now what's left of the Angband army, fresh from their victory over the Sons of Feanor, pushing in. But this is kind of a doomed endeavor. With no general to keep them in line and prevent them from fleeing and being attacked on multiple sides, this mid-tier heavy force is not long for this world. Down with the Troll Guard. Not many of them. These troops being attacked from the rear. The Spear Guard were there to meet it, but again, they're getting tired. They are leaderless. And the Udurloki is getting in there. He has something to say about it. I'm going to take down a few of those mounted company, but they do have bonuses against elephants, so the Udurloki doesn't want to get himself isolated. The Spear Guard are going to survive this. There's more units pressing in from all sides. Oh man, this is just going to be so ugly for the Angband forces. We're already starting to see the routing, and that's going to spook the rest of them. Even with the Bulldogs in there, it's not going to be enough. More and more routing. Halberdiers now routing. Everything is in full retreat. That's basically it for the Angband army. It's one of the big weaknesses of Angband. When they lose that general, or they're getting exhausted and they're suffering morale shocks, that's the most likely place for them to break en masse like this. And so off they go. Hundreds of them kind of flee their way back to the Iron Mountains, if they may. That's basically it. I think we have an admit defeat here as well. Yep, yes indeed. And everything is basically gone. And so that leaves a tiny band, a tiny plucky band of Doriath infantry. Where are they now? Right here. Some spear host trying to assassinate the Finarfin general. Let's see if they manage to do it. I'd be very impressed if they did. They're looking pretty bloodied, so it's possible. It's definitely possible. Oh, some of them going down. There goes one. Let's see if they manage to get to it in with their poison darts. Probably not, eh? Oh, nope, nothing there. Might manage to kill off some of them. I'm really curious to see. Nope. It's not going to happen. They're going to get overrun by the Mounted Company. They're going to try and hold their ground, but they will be swept away in moments. And that's basically GG right there. Rangers of the Girdle, along with the Kuthalim, very wisely positioned themselves among the stakes. The Feanor cavalry is going to charge them nonetheless. They're going to scoot around their position because there's really nothing to prevent them from doing so. The Kuthalim, the personal bodyguards of Beleg, who you can see right there. You can see his model. He's going to be fighting alongside his liege lord Thengol. You can see right beside him, right there with the horns. And they're going to fend off cavalry charge after cavalry charge. They're actually making them pay for it in blood here. Surprisingly enough, the Kuthalim are, of course, relentless. And so they don't flinch, which means they're always attacking. Very scary. Some of those rangers trying to get in there and support their lord, but they just don't have the courage or the numbers to do it for very long. Defenders of Talathirnan in here. Thengol and his retinue are going to charge them. This is some real Last Samurai stuff here. 81 to 98, so not exactly the closest battle, but those defenders, after being like briefly massacred, are actually going to run away. Can't say I blame them for that. 9 or 10 of them falling. And that'll give the cavalry another opportunity to charge in, but the Kuthalim are on top of it. Let's see, they're going to drop from, what, 14 to 10. We could see them rout here. Not doing too badly. Oop, there's some marksmen there getting a lot of friendly fire, trying to sink their claws into the Kuthalim. Now those cavalry are going to pull out. Kuthalim down to about 6. There's just a mountain of dead here surrounding this one very brave unit, but I think they're going to come to a fairly ignoble end. Indeed, they're just going to get shot to death, Last Samurai style. Thengol, the last member of his retinue, charging forward, and he is just executed by the Nargothrond marksman. A sad end for a noble elf, but that is going to be basically the end of the match. Not the closest, but a 17% or so difference, but still fun to watch. Very chaotic, a lot of really good teamwork, and you did see Valinor do quite well in that. They got the most kills on their team. Helps when they have that many shoal hunters against the Falathrim, who are predominantly a light infantry force, especially in this. I think they got a lot of their kills early on against some of the spear host and the marines and so forth. So that's probably where a lot of it came from. So go ahead and check out their kill counts. Mariners did all right. Kinsmen of Ingwe did good. Knights of Tyrion, of course, did well. Shoal hunters, or shoal runners rather, did not too badly. Plaza Guardians did well. Sentries did really well. A lot of killing off light units. I don't think we really saw too much from the Grieving Sons, actually. Hearthguard getting a lot of kills, so that's probably in melee after the fact. Shoal Hunters doing very well. And then the Swan Guard, the sort of spearmen, they're just there. They're mostly fodder anyway, so I wouldn't expect them to get a ton of kills. But yeah, really good game. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you'll join me for whatever comes next. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.